Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Human Rights, the show in which we discuss all things related to human rights. I'm your host, Julz Allender, and I am part of the California chapter of Youth for Human Rights International. Youth for Human Rights International's purpose is to enlighten and educate people around the world on what their human rights are, with specific focus on the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And with this education, to enable and inspire the youth of today as our leaders of tomorrow to stand up and secure these rights for themselves and all people on earth. And as you know, for each show, we like to take up one right and try to broaden your understanding of how this right is important to you and your loved ones. And for today's show, we'll take a look at human right number 2, don't discriminate. And it reads, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Let's take a look at a short video on this specific human right.
Joe. Steven. Eric, right here. I'll take him right there. All right, thank you. Thank you. Right here.
Let's examine these ideas a little more closely. In human relations, the word discriminate carries with it an ugly connotation. It suggests bigotry and prejudice. It implies social injustice and the denial of rights. Per the dictionary Wordnik, discriminate means to make distinctions on the basis of class or category without regard to individual merit, especially to show prejudice on the basis of ethnicity, gender, or a similar social factor. So I read quite a few different definitions, and this little quotation, without regard to individual merit, was prominent in most of them. So what is merit? Merit means to deserve or be worthy of. You see, the act of discriminating against another is the act of assigning them a quality or a trait that they don't deserve, or denying them a quality or trait that they do deserve. So you could say that the genesis of discrimination is to assume some factor about another that isn't observed. The root of discrimination often lies in assuming something about others without truly understanding them. We form opinions based on minimal information, drawing conclusions without genuinely observing or knowing the person. Instead of taking the time to learn about individuals, we make judgments that lack real insight into who they are. You see someone in tattered clothes and assume they are poor, or someone in a suit and you assume they have a college education. You assume the poor person is not as intelligent as the one who went to college. You could have easily assumed that the person in tattered clothes was doing some chores on his multi-million-dollar estate, and the guy in the suit was looking for a job. The truth is, you don't truly know anything until you take the time to observe it. Observing another person requires a bit more effort. You'll need to genuinely look at and engage in conversation with them. Through this kind of personal interaction, you can discover for yourself what an individual is truly like. Hair color, gender, clothes, the type of car they drive are all superficial. What is important is, do they keep their word? Do they deserve your trust? Are they productive? Finding out these kinds of things takes time. Being able to look at someone who has no experience with, being able to look at someone who you have no experience with and not be predisposed to a point of view about them is one of the more difficult things to do in life. But to live without prejudice is to do exactly that. In our daily lives, we appreciate diversity. As the saying goes, variety is the spice of life. We enjoy changing things up. No one wants the same meal every night, and we choose different outfits each day. Diversity is one of the few certainties in our world. And within just a few miles, you'll find incredible diversity in gender, race, education, language, religion, and countless other aspects of human life. For example, schools might bring together students who speak different languages at home, while workplaces often include individuals from varied culture and educational backgrounds. Each group views and applies human rights uniquely, shaped by its own values and desires. For instance, one community may prioritize religious freedom, while another values equal educational opportunities. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights isn't meant to dictate these values, but to provide a framework where all these differences can coexist and connect. Recognizing these rights in others helps create smoother social interactions, allowing for respectful, productive exchanges in our diverse society. And before we get to our special guest for the show today, let's take a look around the world at some good news that occurred in human rights. Portugal is now home to the largest marine protected area network in Europe. Yes, in an effort to help achieve the goal of protecting 30% of the world's land and ocean by 2030, Portugal just became home to the largest marine protected area network in Europe, located in the Azores archipelago. Home to deep sea corals, whales, dolphins, sharks, and more, the Azores' critical underwater ecosystem will now be protected from damaging activities like fishing. The addition to the MPAs means 15% of the archipelago's waters are fully protected and 15 are highly protected, leaving totaling 287,000 square miles. Why is this good news? The historic 30 by 30 agreement is critical for protecting marine ecosystems and local economies, but currently just 8% of the ocean is protected in some way. MPAs have also been proven to be good for underwater habitats, help with carbon sequestration, boost fish stocks, preserve tourist attractions, and more. This is a major step in the right direction. Education is a fundamental human right, and safeguarding children is essential, especially within the school environment where meaningful improvements can be made. Prioritizing their safety creates a space where students can thrive and learn without fear. Here are some powerful statistics that highlight the importance of creating safe schools for every child. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, during the 21-22 school year, approximately 19% of students aged 12 to 18 reported being bullied at school. Female students reported higher instances of bullying, 22% compared to male students, 17%. Middle school students experienced higher rates, with sixth graders reporting 27% and seventh graders 26%, while high school students reported lower rates, with ninth graders at 18% and 12th graders at 15%. My guest today is Irene van der Zande from Kid Power. Kid Power is an organization dedicated to teaching essential life skills to children and the adults who support them. These skills include acting with awareness, calmness, and confidence, protecting oneself emotionally from hurtful words or behaviors, recognizing what is and isn't safe, moving away from trouble, whether physically, emotionally, or digitally, assessing situations carefully, thinking first or checking with a trusted adult before acting. There is a significant need for organizations like Kid Power to help parents, teachers, and caregivers equip children with the tools to navigate new challenges and technologies that may pose risks. And so, with that, I'd like to welcome Irene to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And so, tell me about Kid Power.
Well, you did a great start with what we do. Started in 1989. We are the global nonprofit leader in personal safety education. We teach the skills you described, help to prevent harm, such as bullying and abuse and many kinds of violence. These skills also help to strengthen relationships. And having safe and strong relationships helps to reduce isolation, protect mental health, and add joy and purpose to our lives.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
so, what brought you into Kid Power?
Well, in 1985, before Kid Power, when my family was young, I took a group of small children, including my own two, to City Art Museum in downtown Santa Cruz. And on the way back, a man with a lot of problems got triggered by the sight of a mom with 8 kids with her. And he started to follow us, saying I had all the cute kids and he didn't have anybody.
Mm.
Now I'm used to people with problems. So I just told the kids, if you're scared, hang on to me. And they did. And I crossed the street like an octopus with 8 little hands hanging on to me. We got to the lobby of the bus station because that was part of our adventure. And suddenly this man came charging through the automatic opening doors, shouting that he was going to take one of the kids.
Oh my gosh.
It was a classic case of the bystander effect because everybody froze except for me. And I did what I know you would do, Julz, and I bet anybody watching this would do because you care about safety and human rights. And I got in between the man and the kids, and I started yelling at him. He was yelling back, I can do what I want. I can say what I want. And I was yelling, we had a face-to-face confrontation, and I was yelling, get out of here. Leave us alone. And finally, we were stuck, I mean, it was very visceral. The spit from his mouth was landing on my face. I had this image of this skit to this day of these terrified children behind me. And I finally ordered a bystander to help. And I said, get over here and help me. Can't you see these kids are scared? And as soon as he came to help me, then the guy bothering us ran away. The kids were fine. I yelled and the bad guy ran. But as you can imagine, I wasn't fine. I kept thinking, what if he knocked me down? What about the unprotected children he probably went on to assault? And so being a community organizer, that was my whole career, was community organizing and programs to help people of all kinds, whether they were elderly, whether it was child care centers, or whether it was people with disabilities. And so I gathered with educators, other parents, martial artists, public safety officials. I gathered with counselors and healthcare providers to look at the programs that were there. And this is a long time ago. This is more than 35 years ago. They were very talk-based, or they were something that you had to train years to be able to do, or fear-based. And I didn't want that for children. So so we just kept looking and finally decided to start a nonprofit ourselves. And Kid Power was established in 1989.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, geez, yeah, talk about creating something, finding out there is a need for something after an experience like that, and just persisting to do something about it. That's just incredible. Um, I think a lot of people would have ciphered off the responsibility to somebody else, right? Or, pushed it, not my problem type of a thing. But no, you just stood there and you understood that something has to be done about it and took action. So that's incredible. Tell me how impactful Kid Power has been.
We have reached over 10 million people And we work with all ages, all abilities, all cultures. I know our name's Kid Power, but we found very quickly we had to train the adults, and then they started using this for their own safety. We work with different beliefs, identities all over the world. And we have found that the skills, the ones you were describing, awareness, move away from trouble, speaking up, translated really well into different languages and into different cultures. You have to adapt some because what changes, no matter who you are, how old you are some of your abilities and some of the kinds of problems you might face. We are, I'll just take one example in Nepal, where one of the people we've trained, Sushma is a leader for Kid Power in Nepal. She's trained thousands of kids in government schools in very rural municipalities. She's teaching safety and self-defense skills because these kids are in danger walking to school as well as being at school. And she says that, and we can see it. I mean, I can send you a link to a video about how the monsoon didn't stop her from going out and keeping kids safe. And now she's training educators in how to bring the programs to all their students. So that's just one of many impacts. In California, I had a person who works with kids with disabilities. And she said, I have been using these skills since I got training in 2005.
Wow.
And they have helped prevent, because we work in a neighborhood with a lot of violence, they have helped me to prevent tragedies from happening because I could notice trouble sooner and knew how to take action to avoid and stop it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of impact that we have. You say, yeah.
That's quite an impact. Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah.
that's awesome. And how many different countries are you in, and what are they?
Well, it's more than 17 countries. So Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Sweden, Germany, in France, and I'm kind of going around the world in my head, Ecuador, Argentina, Mexico, Guatemala, of course, in the US and lots of different states, Canada, and I'm sure I left somebody out. They'll forgive me. But and we had a conference in April. We had people from 15 of the countries we serve. Oh, in Iran and Russia. And but in the countries we serve, but actually people from all over the world. That's where we have people organizing and teaching classes, or they are doing it on their own through their own activities, but they've gotten training from us. We also have people on every country and every continent of the world except Antarctica, I think. As far as I know, not Antarctica, using and teaching our skills. And we hear stories all the time of people from places like China or Singapore, where we didn't even know they were doing it. And then they come back and they ask us a question.
Wow. Wow, that's quite something. I mean, that's quite having, a piece of technology, right? Or a piece of useful information and being so pervasive in obviously a positive way through every area of planet Earth. So it definitely obviously is useful and people find it extremely helpful. So explain to me how it works. Is this something someone can access online and get the training? And then if they would like, they could set up their own small community or large community, or I'll let you go ahead and.
So we have over 400 free educational resources on our website. We also have books that we sell. We have our online learning center with courses that people can, so we have a work power course for people with disabilities, by and for people with disabilities. We have Pride Power, which is by and for people from the LGBTQIA plus community. We have Safety Powers for anyone of any ability. to learn how to, where we have video lessons on how to stay safe. We have sexual abuse prevention training that's used by educators in schools. We have a huge number of offerings in the online learning center. And then we offer both online and where we have instructors, like in Nepal or parts of California, we have in-person classes. But most of our work is online now. That was one of the gifts of the pandemic for us, was it forced us. People have been begging for online for years. And when we couldn't teach anymore in person, the first class we taught was for adults online. It was emotional safety skills because everybody was shut down. And we thought the adults need to stay emotionally safe in order to be able to handle this really challenging situation. So yeah, so how it works is we practice the skills. We have people, I'll just give one skill to you. If you just put your hands up like this in front of you, like a wall, and just say, please stop.
Please stop.
And that doesn't work all the time, but I will say that a lot of people in a lot of cultures have never even been able to know that they could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we teach people to be really persistent in getting help. And if one person doesn't help, to go to another person.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And the fact that it's so accessible and it can be grabbed from basically anyone who has access to internet at this point in time, can increase and gain abilities to help them just feel more confident and secure about themselves. So awesome. And go ahead.
It's the difference between telling and doing.
Yes.
We need awareness, understanding, and skills for acting on our awareness and understanding in order to make any kind of change or to take charge of anything, whether it's advocacy of any kind for yourself or for others.
Right.
That's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. And what has the response been from schools? Have you had any adoption?
Well, schools use our program for their bullying program, prevention programs, for abuse prevention, sometimes for character development because of the relationship piece of it. Many schools have our boundary posters. You can download them online. Boundary and consent posters up on the walls of the multi-purpose room or of the classroom, just to remind people of what the consent and boundary rules are. And so yes, schools are adopting our program. We do a lot of training of playground supervisors, educators, parents, as well as even online in classrooms with children.
Excellent. And what kind of results do you see in children who have participated in the program?
Well, what we hear is that, and we see ourselves, is that they are more likely to speak up, to say, stop, please stop. They're more likely to listen. They're more likely to walk away from trouble. They're more likely to protect their feelings because we have 12 emotional safety skills for how to protect your feelings. Then rather than just getting overwhelmed and upset and feeling horrible about themselves, or rather than getting into fights. They're better able to manage their emotional triggers, or as they call it in education, self-regulate. They are really persistent in getting help. One story from our Kid Power India Center was, and this is because the culture is so challenging there, to be able to speak up when a teacher is acting inappropriately and to set boundaries and then to go and get help from somebody in a position of authority is a really big stretch. Now, we've had stories like that in the US as well, and in California too, but that sounded funny. You know what I meant? We everywhere, we say we serve locally and share globally. But to have it from a culture where that's so against what they would normally do, which is be quiet and suffer, is really exciting, because it shows that when you practice something, you're far more likely to be able to use it in a real life situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so what is next for you, and what are you currently working on?
Well, we're working on growing the programs, growing our online learning center, having people know about it. That's what's such a gift to be able to be part of your program today, is having people know about what we offer. And then training people. We have set up, we call it a training of practitioners or TOPS program. It's an online training program intended to be accessible to people everywhere. And we are constantly working at translating what we teach into other languages, again, to increase the access and in showing how to adapt it for people when they have a life challenge, such as being a survivor of abuse or such as being different in any way or as having a disability.
Yeah, that's excellent. Definitely useful, and training of protection practitioners. I love that term, right? Because I think sometimes we isolate or we designate specific things to only qualified individuals, not understanding or knowing that we all can be qualified in different areas and even in different professions to be able to have those qualities, right? And to act and not be the effect constantly of others and have to wait for others' opinions or knowledge, but have it as our own. And so that definitely resonated with me when that term. That's awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we get to the close of the interview, we ask every guest this, and that is, of all of the different rights listed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which one is your favorite and why?
Okay. Well, I read them all again. It's been a while. I thought it's a hard question because every single one of them, I mean, discrimination, for heaven's sakes. And I'm glad you feature each of them. And I thought about it and I finally said, okay, number 3, the right to life, liberty, and the security of person, which I would translate as safety, right? Because we take a broad definition of what it means to have the right to life and liberty and safety, emotionally, physically, personally, economically. You can't have right to life if you don't have enough to eat, or you can't have liberty if you can't have the right to work, and you certainly don't have safety if you're being, being abused. So I felt that it applied to all the rights, and that's why it's my favorite.
I love that. I love that. Not interpretation, but that viewpoint on that right. And I would agree with you. I mean, um, security of person is a broad term, and it has all those different meanings: finance, health, safety of emotions, and all of that. So yeah, that is most excellent. And so if someone wants to get more information on Kid Power, your website is kidpower.org. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And they can email us. People email us all the time with questions at safety@kidpower.org, which is pretty easy to remember. But so they can just go to our website, kidpower.org, take a look at our online learning centers. You can get to it, or the resources, they're right at the top, and email us with questions at safety@kidpower.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Irene, so much. It was great talking to you today and hearing again about your amazing organization and all of the children and adults that you empower around the globe. And you're just giving them more confidence, you're giving them more stability, you're giving them more security. And that is definitely something everybody needs.
Thank you, Julz. This has been a great opportunity to talk with you again.
You're very welcome. Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about such an important topic. And as I interview all of these wonderful and different guests and look at how they have taken this idea of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and employed it into their career or their hobby, I do always find it inspiring. And then I wonder, what will you be doing with this information? How will you pass this message on? If you have an inspiring story, or if you are involved in some way in human rights, please do let us know, and we will include it on our future shows and include you on our future shows. As you know, we have wonderful videos in 17 languages on the Youth for Human Rights International website about each human right and the history of human rights. You can watch these and learn so much about the human rights at yhri.org. If you'd like to be a guest on our show or again know someone whom you think we should have on our show, let us know at talkabouthumanrights@gmail.com. And as always, please check out our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Youth for Human Rights California at YHRCAL. And until next time, I will see you then. Thank you.